Hello, hello. Welcome to the Story Darlings podcast. I'm Sandra.
And I'm Tara.
And what are we talking about today, Tara?
So during our break, Sandra introduced me to the book series that is only 2 books, but I'm going to call it a book series because we should get a third book. Like, after what happened in this book, there better be a damn third book. But anyway, we are taking a break and reading Iron Flame, which is 28 hours long if you're listening to the audio, and ridiculously huge if you're not. So
huge. We like our books thick. Tara said we were taking a break. Just to be clear, we are reading all of Sarah J. Maas's series and then taking a little hiatus to dive into Fourth Wing since Iron Flame just came out. And it's looking like it'll be a year when the third book comes out. So yay, waiting on cliffhangers.
And I'm not a bit bitter because these are good books, except for I was supposed to not have to read a book a week during this time frame. And well, that didn't happen. So
Tara loves it because we're masochists.
Yes. But I did thoroughly enjoy Fourth Wing. So I think it really went up there on my top books. I thought it was really good. This one was super long. It took me a lot longer to read though, because I think I finished Fourth Wing in 2 days. This one, it was a little lengthier.
Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros is very much a different kind of story that's being told, right? So Fourth Wing was so much fun. You're getting thrown into this war college. There's all these dangerous, life-threatening shenanigans, and the romance is super hot. And then you get to Iron Flame, and there's a distance, like a physical distance aspect of it, which just leans into this very slow burn. And then there's just so much paranoia going on because you don't know who to trust character-wise. And then it's just second year for Violet and crew, and it's just so dangerous. And I do not envy any of the coursework, the courses that they have to take the second year. So
I don't envy any of it, even if it's not the coursework. Just living in that place seems like it's not great.
Tara's like, I changed my mind. I don't want a dragon anymore. I will gladly be a healer.
No, I mean, yes, I would like to be a healer. And I did take another little quiz to say, what is your signet or whatever. And I think I got Mender, but I'm going to have to retake that just to make sure. And again, Sandra, I think that this would be a good non-read a book a week extra episode that we can do with us just taking quizzes and see who's your Akatar character, who's your Fourth Wing character, who's what's your signet. But anyway, Sandra likes making me read books.
That's fair. We'll do fun episodes, fun, lighter, shorter episodes. But I mean, we already kind of got ahead of ourselves with spoilers for Iron Flame. But the first book left us on a cliffhanger because Violet was dying, and Xaden bites it and takes her somewhere no one wants her to be taken to. We find out her brother Brennan is alive, and he is this very talented mender. And so we pick up in Erasia, which is the hometown, I guess, at the kingdom where Xaden's family is from. And Brennan has saved Violet. And so now she's just kind of getting used to things. They're rebuilding Erasia secretly, where the people of King Tori's kingdom and the people at Basgiath War College don't know about it. And is there anything else you want to touch on with what's happening at Erasia when Violet wakes up?
She finds out a couple of things about kind of what the battle that they just went through cost her, because we find out that something happened to Andarna. Nothing bad, because we protect Andarna at all costs over here. But due to the power that Violet used from her, she has grown significantly in a very, very quick time frame. And it's not normal for the baby dragons to do that. And so they're all a little bit worried about her, and she needs to go for this big sleep, which sounds really, really great. It reminds me of toddlers not wanting to take that nap like Andarna does. And as an adult, I'm take the freaking nap, because I would kill to get to take a nap. But yeah, so we see that. And then we also get Violet kind of coming to terms with Brennan being alive, which is both happy, but she's also very, very angry at Brennan and everybody else for keeping this from her. And she even like goes after Tarn, about it because she's like, you didn't tell me and you knew. And so she's like feeling very left out of a very big secret.
We learned that Xaden kind of told her that Brennan was alive without really admitting to it. Like those breadcrumbs were sprinkled in his first conversation at the parapet in the first book, because she was like, well, you know, your father killed my brother. And he was like, well, your mother killed my father. But it was when she said that your father killed my brother, he was like, hardly. And it just felt like a not related kind of comment. And then you're like, oh, okay. Like those pieces fall into place. So it's just, I really enjoy watching the banter and the relationship between Xaden and Violet kind of grow into what it has. And then we learn that Eratia, the people there at court, are just making plans. And so back at Basgiath, it's coming up on graduation day. And so they have to figure out whether they plan on just showing up, because they were supposed to die in the last mission and they did not. And they are basically, I don't know, it's not dereliction of duty, but they have
AWOL.
Yes. So you want to talk about what happens next?
Yeah. So first, we see kind of a come to Jesus moment between Violet and Xaden, because he only offers her partial honesty. He's like, I can't tell you everything. And Violet is like, well, fuck that. Like, I deserve to know the truth. And she gives him an ultimatum of it's either the full truth or like, we're not together. And so we see even more division in Xaden and Violet because she is not down for the half-truths that he's willing to give her. And then, as Sandra mentioned, graduation. And they're reading off the death like rolls as like they come in, and their names are like on these death rolls. And so you see Violet's mom like, what the heck? Because she had been told her daughter died. And they come like, in my mind, I envision them like strolling in like, you know, yeah, I'm here at my funeral kind of a thing, like grossly underestimating me. But yeah, it was, I found that scene kind of comical.
It was comical leading up to that scene, because they're like, as soon as our dragons enter the territory, it's going to alert all the other dragons. They're going to tell their riders and the people that head up the school. So we need to act quickly. They're putting their plan to place. They're walking through the halls, giving like subtle nods to the other separatist kids and stuff. And Violet runs into Rhiannon, right? Hands off Liam's letters that she wants to keep safe. There's such an emphasis on burning the belongings, which is very suspect in my opinion. I'm like, why is it so crucial to burn things that belong to the dead? But we can talk more about it later. So Rhiannon finds out that, you know, Liam legitimately is dead, which destroyed me in the first book. I know it destroyed you too. Like it made me so sad. And then Dane's father is such a piece of work. I'm like, well, if we didn't like Dane, we can probably point to the reason being his asshole colonel of a father. And so we see a very different side of Colonel Atos that we saw in the first book. Like the first book, he always came off as like, oh, you know, family friend, very pleasant, you know, in passing comments and stuff. And this one, he's just very suspicious and just comes across
manipulative.
as very manipulative. Yeah. So it's basically a secret between the relic people that were on this Resin mission in the first book with Violet, and then with Atos that, you know, they were supposed to die. Only that they are in the know on what happened. And so then it becomes a very scary experience at the college where people are, you know, trying to assassinate them under Colonel Atos's order, right? So it's a very different place from first year. And then tack on the horrible classes that the second years have to take, right? Like there is a torture class.
An interrogation class.
Yeah. Excuse me. Interrogation class.
They don't call it torture because they're the good guys.
But everyone has to, be able to withstand a questioning. And if you admit to anything or give away any piece of information, you're dead type of thing. So the second year is even more dangerous and not fun. And we also get to see kind of a humorous aspect to it too, though, because Violet and, all of her friends and stuff, having just finished first year, they're like looking at the new class of, conscripteds coming in. And it's so cool. Like, it's almost like looking down at the incoming freshmen, all bright-eyed and bushy-tail. So I did kind of enjoy that different perspective.
Although we do also meet another first year that becomes pivotal. We meet Sloane, Liam's little sister, and boy, does she have a chip on her shoulder. Like, she is livid at Violet. Like, so mad. She blames Violet for her brother's death completely. And she knows the whole story. Like, she knows that it was Xaden that told him you have to watch her and all of that. But she blames Violet.
Mm-hmm. She had so much hatred for Violet. I had to keep reminding myself, like, okay, put yourself in her shoes. If you had this awesome brother, which Liam was amazing, and apparently he was like writing her letters and just giving her the download about everybody and all the happenings at school. So obviously she loved him very, very much. So I would probably resent Violet as well.
So we also, and I know we've met Jacinia before, but we also get more of her in the stories because Violet is wanting to ask her for help. And Xaden is completely against bringing in other people because he thinks it will like open them up to somebody telling on them. But Violet's like, we can trust her and we need her because we're not going to find the books that we need. We're not going to find the things that we need, the information, if we don't ask her for help. And she's already covered for me once, which is something Violet finds out because Jacinia is bringing her a book. And as she does that, somebody else gets dragged out of their room and they are on the death roll the next day. And it was one of the people that were with them during the last battle. And so, as Sandra said, that they are getting picked off like one by one, whether it be like being brought up on crime charges or what. But we figure out that this one was brought up on charges of requesting a book that he was not supposed to be requesting. And Jacinia is the one who gave it to him and also brought it up that he requested it to her higher-ups. So she feels bad that she basically got him killed. And in Violet's mind, it triggers the fact that Violet had also requested a book that she wasn't supposed to. And she never got murdered. And so she brought it up with Jacinia, and Jacinia's like, well, you're my friend. Like, I know you, basically. And so I didn't put that up. And so Violet already knows that Jacinia has, put herself on the line in order to protect Violet. So.
And obviously Xaden doesn't have that kind of relationship with Jacinia. So it was kind of suspicious when he was very adamant about tagging along and meeting Jacinia himself. And if you think back to moments too, it's almost like he was answering questions that Violet hadn't spoken aloud. You know what I mean? And so he just has very weird behavior going on this entire time. But then he determines that Jacinia is fine, with talking to her. But specifically, Violet is wanting to dig into wards. So from all the stuff in Erasia, they want to figure out a way to protect Erasia as it's rebuilding because the venin problem is growing. They're coming more west. And so they need to get wards up to protect Erasia and more people because Navarre's borders are closed and it's becoming a huge problem. So that's been Jacinia's main task, is digging into books, trying to figure out the secret that's been buried under rewritten books, generation after generation about how to get the wards up. Meanwhile, there's a graduation party and it's kind of sad. It's not like a bummer. I mean, it's kind of a bummer for Violet because she doesn't really get to celebrate it how she wants to. And she's having a horrible time getting Xaden to open up to her. So the graduation party, infantry knows how to party. There's like a little epigraph at the beginning of the chapters. Like, I don't envy the infantry for a lot of things, but they do know how to let loose, unlike the dragon riders, because everything is just to the extreme for those people. But I mean, people are standing up on tables dancing. There's a lot of alcohol going on. Riddick is a character I've come to adore just because he's so fun loving, right? He's always into the
hilarious.
shenanigans. So funny. And then Violet spies Xaden across the ways and notices that he is like in full lieutenant uniform, has a bag ready to go. And she's just like, he's getting sent off to duty station already. Like, so unfair. And the place that he sent off to is called Samara. And I picture it as almost like a Russia type of place. Like, it's like up north and near the mountains, lots of cold and snow. And it's supposed to be the toughest duty station that you can be sent to. So Colonel Atos is having his way with keeping them apart. You want to talk about what that looks like now?
Yeah, and so it's not only Colonel Atos. We have a new commander at the school named Varish, and his dragon is a little bitch. I forgot what his dragon's name is, but
Solus.
Solus, yes. I do not like this dragon. I do not like Varish at all, right? And so he knows that there's something going on. And I know that it mentions what his signet is or hints to what his signet is, but it's like something like he can, I forgot what he does, but
it's a type of intrinsic where he can read what you care about most right now.
Oh, yes. Okay, yeah. And so he is just bad. He's bad.
There's even that epigraph that talks about how he was stationed, it was at Samara, and 3 people that were under interrogation died under his interrogation tactics. And they were like recommending for Varish to be pulled off of doing those kinds of things. He's a bad dude.
Yeah. And so he has it out for Violet and crew as well. And so I think he is the one who kind of has been working with Atos this whole time and gave him the orders, maybe, to do what he did in the last book. But he's not good either. And so they are picking off one by one the people who were in this battle because they know the truth and they don't want the truth to get out. And we meet somebody else new around this time when the first years come in, and his name is Auric. And we find out that Auric is not who he says he is, that he is the son of the king, and he is pretending not to be so that he can go through the writer's school. And somehow his dad doesn't know that he's missing or doesn't want to like tell everybody that his son is missing. I don't get the backstory there, but he is there. And Violet and Dane both know who he is because they've known him since childhood. And so they are also keeping his secret.
I don't know how you pronounce his name. I was calling him Eric the whole time. I think his fake name was Cam or something is what he was. I can't remember what his name, like which one was which, but as soon as he came on screen, like on page at the parapet, I was like, oh, I like him so much. Just the way he's described. And apparently he has a couple older brothers. So he's the youngest of King Tori. And his older brother, who went through infantry, died. And we don't know exactly why yet, but like had died. And so he's doing all of this under the guise of he's traveling across the country on like a, philandering prince kind of tour. And so that's where his father thinks he is. And he has an agenda against his dad because we can talk about this now, but Eric has put 2 and 2 together because he's seen the special daggers that the soldiers at the palace carry around and all of the secrecy around his father. So he knows that the Venin are an actual real problem with the Wyvern and that the Griffins aren't their true enemy. And so he wants to do something about it. So immediately I was like, yes, I like him.
Yes.
And he's cute too.
He seems like a throwback to Throne of Glass. He seems like a Dorian who has it, like he has it figured out a little bit. He knows what he wants to do. He's just trying to get out from under his father so that he can be his own man. So, yes. So we meet those. And then, as I said, Varish's dragon is a little bitch. As they're standing in like a formation, doesn't the dragon like attack like fire breathing on the 4th wing because that's where most of the people are. And he kills somebody. I don't remember who he kills, though.
The way he's described, he's just kind of a psychotic dragon, very unpredictable, one eyeball. And Tarn the whole time is like, keep your eye on him, watch him, like, do not take your attention off of him.
Well, he's the one who got rid of his other eyeball. Like, they've been at war. And I think that is part of the reason that Solus does not like Violet at all, is because he's trying to get at Terrence through Violet. So he's trying to attack Violet, but because Violet is keeping her eye on him, she realizes before he starts breathing fire that he's about to, and so she tells them all to get down. And so she is kind of saved a little bit. And then Terran goes after him. He's like, I will murder you. Like, do not do that again.
Yeah, I forget who was killed. It was someone's Rhiannon was talking to. And even the back of Violet, when she stands up after getting down, is like her fabric singed off just down to the dragon scale armor. So not a good dragon. Something isn't right there. And then it's when Colonel Ados and Varish are delivering missives to Xaden and Violet before Xaden goes off to Samara. And the missive basically states that you guys have to be apart every 2 weeks, meaning they have to alternate every 7 days who gets to visit who. And it's not exactly straightforward in that either, because them being able to even go see each other every 7 days is very dependent on their behavior and them fulfilling things that Varish and Atos ask of them to do, especially revolving around Andarna. There's a lot of interest in Andarna.
Mm-hmm. But we do see some very cute things happening as they are parted, because Xaden is writing her letters with the truths that he can tell her, which are the truths about himself. So like his deepest memories, thoughts, which is really cute to read.
Mm-hmm. I am a sucker for romantic letters, and Xaden just starts pouring out all these little nuggets about his childhood and things that he remembers about his father and that kind of thing. So it's his compromise, I guess, because he's still going to be a little asshole about not being upfront and just completely transparent and open about things. He has his secrets. So then, we undergo second year, and there is the torture or interrogation class, excuse me. It's called Rider Survival Course. And they're like, oh yeah, you haven't heard about this because everyone is to keep their mouth shut about this class. So even Brennan's book, like, he doesn't ever openly speak about it, but he has a page kind of like referring to it very vaguely. And basically, they're going to get kidnapped at any point in time, like bag dropped overhead, and you're going to be whisked away with some members of your squad and then just grilled, and you have to be able to endure it. And I'm just like, pass, hard pass.
Yeah, I don't think I would make it 5 seconds. Like, even if I didn't spill the truth, my face would.
Yeah, so they're given little passphrases, right? Like little bogus information. And then they have to share a secret among their little group. And they can't say a single word of it or else they fail, whatever that means. Failing.
We get introduced. I'm doing a lot of introductions during this episode, but we also get introduced kind of verbally to another character, because Bodhi lets slip a little piece of Xaden's past.
Bless his heart.
And I think it's when like they're discussing the letters and a piece of what Xaden has already told her. Basically, Bodhi says like he's never seen Xaden care like this much, even Catriona. He didn't care this much. And so Violet is like, who the fuck is Catriona? So it's kind of funny, like, because she's now jealous of this person. She has no clue who she is. But I also feel her, because I was also like, what the hell? Like, why is he keeping that a secret?
Yeah.
Because this person obviously had some lengthy of a relationship with him.
It's kind of comical seeing Violet get really insecure and jealous, right? There was one scene in particular I really, really liked. And Tarn was basically like, 2 dragons bonded with you. I chose you. You have no room to be insecure about yourself, and is basically telling her to get her shit together and like snap out of it, because I mean, she's like having this internal dialogue and is like, well, I've had past people that I've slept with too. And, I couldn't possibly think that Xaden hadn't been with anyone before type of thing. So it's a funny human moment.
Well, and I don't think it's so much that he had been with somebody in the past, because obviously, yes, look at him. But I think it's the fact that it seems like he was keeping it a secret, as opposed to like, yes, I've been with people, they don't matter. Like I think it's more does she still matter? Like, is that the reason you're keeping it a secret?
Yeah. And when we say keeping it a secret, we mean he just doesn't proactively offer up information. Like if it doesn't have something direct to do that comes up like in a conversation very pointedly, it doesn't exist in his mind.
Yeah. And there's a lot that doesn't exist in his mind, like that he has not proactively told her, like her brother being alive.
Yeah.
Like that she is still feeling a little sore about.
Which, about Brennan being alive, Brennan tells Violet that Taryn's first rider, Nowlin, like I got like a romantic vibe between Brennan and Nowlin, right? Did you?
Mm-hmm.
And he just says that Nowlin, I don't know if he says died, but trying to revive him. And so I was just like, what did he do?
He burnt out, didn't he? Like he burnt out trying to save.
That's what they say. But I don't think Brennan ever says the words that he died.
But it's also like, now that you're saying that, the Venom take power from the ground or like the world. And so I'm wondering if maybe he turned Venom trying to save Brennan.
I think that's what happened. I can't remember if it was this book or in Fourth Wing, but one of the chapter epigraphs, it was from Book of Brennan, and he said, at some point, like even those you love can become your enemy too. And so it just made me wonder when I was like, oh, wait, this feels like a romantic relationship.
Well, and that also fits his mom, because like right now he sees his mom as an enemy.
Yes. Do you still think Lilith Sorngale is you're like, oh, she's a bitch in the first book?
I think she's still a bitch, but I think she had her reasons for being a bitch.
Definitely.
And I can understand those reasons. I don't want to give away a spoiler because it's like the very end of the book, but I can understand that because I feel like I would be a bitch too.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
I can understand her a little bit better now after this book. So we see this like sage person, the like leader, general, whatever you want to call him, of the Venom, and he has a significant tie to Violet. She keeps having dreams, which I think are like not necessarily dreams, they're visions. Like that's what happens in my mind. Like this isn't like a normal dream to her. It feels like it's happening. I don't know, but I think it is in fact the sage like testing the waters a little bit with her. And now that you mentioned that, like, what if that sage is like Nolan and his tie to her is through Brennan a little bit?
Or even like, yeah, Brennan definitely, but even like Taryn, since they shared the same writer. It's like, is it possible? There was like a passing comment or epigraph in one of the books that it's interesting that dragons choose not to bond with two riders, considering the catastrophic things that can happen if a rider dies. You know what I mean? So it's like, is it possible for dragons to bond or be bonded, even if that bond kind of changes, by, say, someone turning Venom or something like that? It's just really interesting, especially when we get to the end of the book. But so many questions. I'm like, God damn it, we have to wait a year. Anyway.
Yeah. So those are interesting points that I did not catch on. Again, I was reading the book very, very fast. So I'm going to have to reread it just to catch on to some of these little things. Little like Easter eggs thrown in. But yeah, I did not catch on to that. I mean, I did catch on that there was like a really, really close relationship and that he died trying to save Brennan, or he did, in fact, save Brennan.
Something
because
happened.
Whatever he did led to Brennan being alive.
But besides interrogation and torture class, there's also flying class. So they can't just seat a dragon. Now, of course, there's like, you have to be able to do all of these maneuvers with your dragon, like a running, landing and all this stuff. And Violet's like, fuck, I'm never going to be able to do that. Not with my joints.
Well, and this is also where Varys shows his interest in Andarna because he wants her to show up. And Violet's like, she's asleep, but I can't tell you that. But she can't come. Like she cannot be here. And Taryn is like, you don't command dragons, puny human. And so Vera's just like, yeah, I might not command dragons, but I do command her, and puts her through a basically torture as punishment, making her use her signet over and over and over until she is like this close to burning out and dying. And then I think Taryn even steps in and he's like, no
more. Yeah.
No, yeah. He's like, not gonna let you do this anymore.
That scene that you're talking about, she channels lightning over 40 times, which is more than she has ever done. At like 26 or something was what she had ever done before. And he's just pushing her to the limit. Carr is there just standing by, being a douchebag and not stepping in at all. Taryn has to do it. And then it's like the way they describe Violet after she's been put through this burnout stage is like her skin being on fire, like super hot to the touch. And they have to like literally lay her in a body of, the cold river
Water
to cool down her body, which happens to be the river where she first had her little shadow chat with Xaden when she was collecting ingredients for poisoning in the first book.
Speaking of Xaden, like we have a little bit of a moment between them where she's like, fine, like I can't stay mad at him because I love him. But she is refusing to give him that satisfaction. And so she basically tells him what he told her previously, in that, like, we can just do sex. And he's like, no, you told me that you can't. Like, that's not it. And he's like, I want those 3 words back. And he's like, until I get those 3 words back, no. And I was like, oh.
It was sweet. And also, like, I totally felt for Violet because she wants to get with that package. That would be difficult. And so she says things like, I want you. And he's just like, those aren't the words I'm looking for, honey bunny. I loved it. No, that just kind of added to the slow burn of the book, just with them being apart so long. And then like Varys is just very petty and likes punishing them. So he'll put, Xaden on duty all night. And so Xaden has to go through all these extra hoops to get time, to spend just a few hours with Violet. And it's just a very hard few months for the two of them and their dragons because, the dragons are mated.
And that's not even like figuring in that Violet is having to go through these courses that are horrible. And there's one where they get kidnapped and the infantry are handed a map and the riders are handed a map and they are supposed to find something, right? And they've been given like water, and they like the leadership had put something in this water to like cut off their dragons, right? And so they're trying to find this and they figure out that there were 2 maps because they had been arguing and bickering the whole time about, no, my map looks like this. My map looks like this. And they didn't figure out that there were in fact 2.
That's what I like about these books is that Violet doesn't succeed in everything, right? Like they fail horribly and are lost. And they didn't think to check the 2 maps to make sure they matched and agreed with each other. And so technically each side was like looking at their own map and like correct looking at their own map, but they just weren't communicating that. And so they were just basically stumbling around for, a couple days, not knowing where the hell they were, and given a scribe to kind of log everything that happens too, which, yay, thank you. Thank
their
my
ineptitude.
failure. Yeah. My incompetence. Thank you. I want this saved for everyone. Yeah. The classes are just so much more interesting this year. And then it's like, as that continues, Violet is fulfilling her promise to Liam, which is to keep her eye on Sloane the entire time, because Sloane is back where Violet was a year ago, having to go through parapet and make it through the sparring ring and all of this stuff to make it to presentation and threshing. So it's cute seeing Violet kind of play like big sis to Sloane in a way. And even though Sloane is not about it at all and has so much hatred and vitriol that she's spewing toward her,
she even uses her own techniques to help Sloane, in that she poisons. Like she finds out who Sloane is supposed to be against. She starts poisoning him like she did the last year, which is funny to me. And Sloane's like, no, I won all on my own. And they're like, no, you
Yeah,
didn't.
okay.
No.
And apparently Sloane is so much worse than even Violet was. Like, absolutely zero training whatsoever, have to start from negative ground to get her up to par.
Well, and in that like finding like the two maps thing, we see Jack Barlow's dragon come back and try and kill Violet, which not good.
No. What's his name? Like Bade or something? Bade?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, she's like these orange dragons are just very unstable. It seems like.
I wonder if that's like something to do with the orange dragons, or like they just pick the bad riders. Like, are they like evilish dragons?
I don't know. It makes you wonder because like the black color is Taryn and Coda, which is Melgren's dragon, and they're just very powerful, like very, very strong. And then they keep talking about how green dragons are very smart and they're the most reasonable. Like you can approach them and they're more thoughtful about things. And then like blue, of course, is strong too. But like it does make you wonder, like every experience with an orange dragon has not been good. Like it's very dangerous and unpredictable. So it's kind of a good point.
Yeah.
Wild card dragon, I guess.
Yes. There's a part where I think it's Violet that tells Xaden that it's a two-way street. If you want me to trust you, you have to trust me. And he's basically like, well, I can't tell you everything. And so that part like got me because it's like him admitting that he'll never be able to give her what she wants.
It's stuff like that that gives this book a totally different tone, especially Violet too. She's so like emo in this book. It was very much like Bella Swan in New Moon when Edward leaves and she's just beside herself. It was almost like that kind of tone with the whole Xaden rift with Violet. And that kind of made the book feel a little bit slower too, even though there was so much happening. But yeah, definitely. Poor Xaden.
Yes. And poor Violet, like none of that is on her. I mean, as we learn more of his secrets throughout this book, you start to understand why he is holding those so close to his like chest. But still, like I feel bad for Violet because like I know how that feels to not have the whole truth and to know you don't have the whole truth.
Yes.
So Varys is still on his power kick of he's going to punish her every time Andarna doesn't show up. And after the last incident, Taryn is like, no, not going to happen. And so when Varys starts to try to punish Violet, Taryn steps in and attacks Solace. And so he has Solace by the throat, basically, and he makes Varys apologize to Violet, or he's going to kill his dragon, which, as we know, if the dragon dies, the person dies. So that gives Varys a little bit of incentive to, like, do what Taryn says. But now both Varys and Solace are pissed off.
Yes, it's one of those things where Taryn definitely has the upper hand, but you also don't want to piss off Varys too, because he continues making her life a living hell. It just fuels the hatred for him in the lengths that he's willing to go. Types of things is like, oh, the freaking rucksack searches that he like does with Violet too. So there's a scene where she's smuggling, or not smuggling yet, but like carrying the rune daggers that kill the venom, which she's not supposed to have. So she has like Xaden's jacket on with the dagger in it, and he stops her with his two bodyguards, one of them which is the truth teller, the truth sayer next to him. And they're like, we need to search your pockets and everything. And the other professor comes to her rescue, like, no, she's not breaking any rules. She's not pretending to be anybody else. Like she has, you know, her own uniform on under that, blah, blah, blah. And so we see Rhiannon finally be able to take this dagger through a wall and basically like take it in her own dorm room and hide it from them. And so it's like all of these weird little things like her Violet's friends are able to do.
We also see Mira again. And she is stationed where Xaden is. And I thought that this scene was really hilarious because Xaden's like, you better kiss me quick or you'll be staying in somebody else's room tonight. And like when I read that, I was like, what
is going on? Yeah.
Like, but then right after that, as she's kissing him, Mira walks up and I'm like, oh, so like she wanted you to prove that you are in fact like together or she was going to make Violet sleep in her room, which was really funny.
That was such a cute scene. And then you have a scene kind of parallel to what Violet and Xaden have been struggling with each other. It's like Xaden feels like he can't tell his secrets to Violet to protect her. And then we see Violet grapple with the same thing with Mira when they're practicing archery or whatever the hell it is that they're practicing, because she wants to tell her that Venom are real and Griffin aren't the enemy and there's Wyvern. And she says a comment very casually and Mira's just like, that's just a story, da-da-da. And that's the extent of it. So we see Violet struggling with the same things as Xaden is too. And I think it kind of humbles Violet a little bit, it makes her understand a little bit more, but she's still not all the way there yet.
And then we get to challenges. So Violet is challenged by Dane because he invokes that the leader can challenge whoever they want, whenever they want. And so he challenges Violet because that's the only way he can get her to talk to him.
And everyone's freaking out.
because she knows a lot of secrets now. Not everything, but she knows a lot. And if he touches her, they're afraid that he's going to see those secrets. And so she is trying to put her guards up strong. And I started feeling sorry for Dane during this because you get the sense that he didn't know exactly what he was doing. He knew he was stealing a memory, but he didn't know what for. And he didn't have all of the information from his dad. So it felt very much like Dorian in Throne of Glass, where he didn't have enough information to be making the decisions that he was. And he was trusting somebody that he thought he could.
Definitely. There were a few times in this book where I was kind of weirded out by Dane's behavior because it almost seemed like he had no idea what was going on and had pieces of his memory missing or something. He was very much surprised and had no idea what was going on type of thing. So it makes me wonder if we've even seen the full story of what really happened with Dane. Because we don't know what his father's signet is. We don't know what, there was another commander, Panchek too. We don't know what Panchek's, there's a couple higher ups that we have no idea what their signet is, but there's been little telling lines that they're secretive, top secret type of signet. So we have no idea. So yeah, I'm with Tara. I felt legitimately bad for Dane and was kind of empathizing with him in this book.
Yeah. And then this is where they go to the interrogation. And Dane even, builds me up even more on Dane's side because he refuses. So they pull him in when they couldn't get any of the secrets out of the group, right? And he refuses. He's like, I'm not doing it. I'm not using my power to get a secret out of them. They won. They did not give you their secret.
This is the first interrogation, right? Where she's down there for 2 days and she's been...
It's with the group.
Yeah. And she's kind of battered. And he looks at her and is just like, no, I'm not doing this. He has a conscience, obviously. And Varys is the one that put him up to it. Don't we kind of learn that Varys has been not mentoring Dane, but he's been spending a lot of time with Dane trying to train him?
And so Dane already knows that Varys isn't good, though. I think he gets that. Whereas he was trusting of his dad, he's not as trusting of Varys, I don't think.
Yeah.
We find out that Nolan, who has been looking really, really bad, he's very worn down and all of these things, he has been healing Jack or mending Jack, whatever you want to call it. I think he's a healer, right? Or is he a mender?
He's a healer. I don't know if that's his signet. It might be. I don't know.
So he has been healing Jack. So take that with what you will.
Jack fucking Barlow. And Jack is completely a 180 from the first book. He's just friendly, helpful, just acting like he's had a second chance from Malik and is gonna go down a different path this time around, is what he seems being the operative word.
So she, at this point, either feels or hears that Xaden is hurt in a battle. And so she flies off. And we find out that it's not her really super, super worried. It is, in fact, Taran sharing his feelings with her, taking over, forcing that. And so she just leaves, goes AWOL, and goes to Xaden to find out that it wasn't that bad.
It comes out in battle brief. So they have the scribe leader, Markham, there, who's doing his propaganda bullshit because these weird notes came up reporting that, cities were being attacked. And he's like, oh, you guys are so gullible that you fell for this. Like, return all of these notes to me. And he's trying to distract and all of that stuff and just deceive everybody. And then it's the other professor who's like signaling to Violet, like, left neck, which means like Xaden. Like there was one lieutenant there that was wounded really bad. And as Tara said, like Violet lost her shit and just like packed up and left, even though they were yelling at her to not go anywhere. And so that they call dereliction of duties, going Dodd. And she just hops on her dragon, flies to Samara, runs into Mira. Mira's like, Xaden's in the gymnasium or whatever. And she goes in there and Xaden's like shirtless, sparring with like a Garrick or something, looking all hot and sweaty. But he does have a wound. It's been several hours. So he's been mended or fixed or whatever. And he's on the upswing healing. And then there's a spicy, steamy shower scene.
I was about to say, go ahead. I know you want to talk
Tara's
about
like,
your
I know
spicy
you want to
scene.
talk about it. I'm not going to. No, there's just a really good shower scene, which it is about time. They were separated the entire damn book. And finally, Violet's like, whatever. I don't think she gives him the 3 words here, but they're just like, whatever. We're gonna do this. We need to do this.
This is basically when he was like, you want me to take you like how like I'm able to get you. And he's like, but I want you to give me your heart first. Or no, I think she says that. Like last year you wanted like me to give you whatever. Or I think
it's a reversal, like a role reversal.
Her quote was like, oh, last year I gave my heart first. This year you get to give your heart first. Like something like that. And I was like, oh, go Violet. Like, but she's like, but I really want you. So
the fact that Xaden is like so telling Violet that he needs to hear the 3 words from her, and from what we learn at the end of the book, it makes my heart go out to him. Like why he needs to physically hear her say these words of her own volition. You know what I mean? Like simply just knowing it in his heart isn't enough. He needs to hear her say them.
Yeah.
But yeah. So that's Samara.
And then that's great and all good. But then just to take us down a notch, like, thank you, Rebecca. We then run into Kat, who is a Griffin flyer. And she is being all kinds of bitchy when they meet up with her. And Kat is Serena's younger sister, right? And so they met up with the Griffin flyers, Serena being one of them. Kat is in the background, like, staring at Xaden. Like, and Violet's interpretation of that is that she wants him, right? And then she finds out that this is Catriona. And so Violet's like, oh no, that wasn't like the look of somebody wanting somebody. That was the look of somebody remembering something. And so she gets a little feisty there, which is kind of funny to me.
It's funny how Catriona is described too as being very like queenly, like very royal kind of stature as well. It reminded me of Caltine Rompier too from Throne of Glass, like just her attitude and how she carries herself, very haughty.
Yeah, I caught myself wanting something like what happened with Caltane to happen because I'm like, I really don't like you right now. I'm hoping like you get a redemption at some point because
I'm with you.
I want to feel like Xaden had good picking skills and that he would not have picked somebody that was horrible. But I don't know.
No, I'm with you there. We do finally see Violet open up to her friends. Like she tells them, she doesn't tell them everything because, she can't yet. But we do see her open up about like what's been happening because what is the catalyst for this?
Getting the tomes.
Yeah.
The journals of the 6 individuals who brought up the wards in the first place. So she's thinking that that's where she's going to get the information on how to establish a ward.
Yes, because Riddick was like, oh, wait, didn't you know about the sublevel vaults? I found out about that when we were like going through your mom's office. Like you should have like, no one knew. I knew it.
And Violet's just like,
God damn it.
About a book that you did.
Yeah. So Violet's like, oh shit. Like, if I would have just told them, I wouldn't have been wasting all of these months. Like, they would have
Mhm.
been able to tell me that and be helping all this entire time. So that's right.
And so they figure out that these journals are in fact, like Justinia does tell them that, hey, they are in fact in there, but it is under like a blood lock from the king. So only somebody in the king's bloodline can open it. And she's like, oh, I have another secret. Auric over here is the king's son. Come on, come help us, Auric.
Yeah.
And that's also kind of, they're like, wait, what?
Yeah. And then like Eric comes into the room, and then Xaden is in the room, and then Eric and Xaden look at each other, and then there is just like hatred because Xaden was the one that killed Eric's older brother when he was
Oh, yeah.
at Basgiath. So I guess Prince Eric has never gotten over that. But they do get Eric's help with breaking into the sublevel vault. So it's like this section of the book is when it becomes like a little heist type of story, because they have to have people doing different roles. Like Rhiannon is going to wipe memories, and it's Imogen who can wipe memories, right? And so all these different people are going to do different things. Justinia is going to sneak them into the archive like 1 hour before it locks down. And then if they are still down there, very bad things are going to happen. So then we see them waste almost the entire hour trying to locate where this special book is, this about the wards, how to raise them. And then they're like, okay, well, my father likes to flash things. So they figure out, I'm like, why did they look under the black curtain in the freaking middle of the room? Like the first thing that they did, like they waited until the very end to finally do that. So they get the book. Eric's hand gets like melted-ish, like just gross, like reaching in to get it because of the ward around the book. And then an interesting thing happens where they're racing out of there while like the clock is ringing. And so it's a very like time crunch kind of scene where they're trying to book it out of this sub-level vault, but they get it. And then really terrible shit happens. Violet has a very horrible next 5 days.
So Nolan, who she grew up thinking as, I think, like a second dad, you know, he was the healer that kept healing her from her wounds, drugs her. And so she can't use her signet. She can't do dragon talk, any of that. And she goes for her second round of interrogation under Varish because they know she's helping, because they caught them basically trying to steal this tome. And she had given the journal to Xaden, and he flew off right before she's caught. So at least the journal is safe and somewhere else, but they caught her basically. And so Varish is seeing her weaknesses.
Yeah.
And the things she cares about. And he sees that it's her friends.
Like she's hallucinating Liam the whole time. I'm like, is she hallucinating Liam?
That's what I was thinking. I'm like, that
I was
like
so
he was
confused.
helping her.
Because it wasn't just that scene. He showed up later as well, right? It's very weird. I don't know. It's like, well, the only things is like the letters that he wrote to Sloane, and then the carving of the dragon that he made. Wasn't it like a carving of Andarna that he was working on, and Violet decided to keep it? It's like those things weren't burned.
But back to your, like, they have to burn them. If their stuff doesn't get burned, do they stick around? Like, are they like ghosts that can be around? Because he's the only one that I've seen. Maybe if everything doesn't get burned, like they don't cross over or something, or they could be brought back to life by a mender or something.
Yes.
I'm hoping, because I want Liam brought back.
Rebecca
Rebecca, if you can like get this, make this happen, like Liam needs to come
Rebecca
back.
Yarros. Yeah. No, I have thoughts about like so many hardcore thoughts about this too when we talk theories, because there's definitely something up with this. But I mean, Liam, or her hallucination, whatever he is, helps her mentally get through this, because she is broken over and over and over and fixed, like not totally fixed, but just enough to still be in one piece. Yeah.
And then they bring Dane in. And this is where Varish still thinks Dane is like on their side, just a little bit of a wussy boy or whatever, you know?
Yes,
like,
man.
And, yeah. And so they tell him that they need this from her. And Dane goes to get it. And she pushes forth the memories of like watching Liam die and the battle and like makes him see the truth, basically. And once he does that, I think he like pretends to continue helping Varish, but then turns on Varish. And this is where we see him, in fact, kill Varish.
Stabbed him. Yeah.
I mean, technically it's like a half and half. He did the final kill. It's like from Akatar. Like, yes, did strike first, but like was the one who chopped the head off. And sorry if you have not watched our last episodes.
It's okay,
like,
I'll bleep it.
Spoiler alert. I didn't say who she chopped the head off. She could have chopped the head off of anybody. Okay. But anyway, yeah, Dane gets the kill shot. And because of that, she has to bring Dane with her.
It was kind of a crazy scene in the sense that Violet overwhelmed Dane. You know what I mean? Like, completely overtook him. He was in shock almost. She just overloaded him with the memories she picked. And that'll tie back to another theory later. But like, it was just something to note.
Well, and it was really cool because like this is all happening to her and she knows nothing about what's happening outside. And so when they do get outside, they figure out something else big is happening outside because Xaden has been losing his absolute mind because he cannot contact her. The dragons can't contact her. So they know shit is going down, right? And so he has been planning a surprise attack of like just dropping wyverns all over the place, like dead wyverns. Like, this is the truth. They're out there. Here they are. And so the leadership, as she's escaping, is also losing their mind because they're trying to cover up the fact that he is dropping wyverns everywhere or having wyverns dropped everywhere. Like they're dead bodies, not their live bodies, like just dead ones.
Lilith Sorngale, so Violet's mom, she showed up at the very tail end of that interrogation scene too. So that was another scene that finally scored some brownie points because I still had trouble trusting her fully. And it was like this time I was finally like, okay, maybe her behavior and the way that she's been acting all this time is because she's in a snake pit and has to put out certain kind of, you know, facade and just like go along with things or else, you know, in order to protect Violet. But yeah, so that definitely scored me points. But Xaden takes Violet broken, you know, her body completely broken to Erasia to get mended. And then they have some mended makeup smut. And the assembly there is all in an uproar because they don't trust Violet or any of these people that they bring there.
There's even a comment about like she's General Sorrendel's daughter. And then like Brennan's like, as opposed to her son? Like, yeah, who's right here? Like that means jack crap, guys.
Yeah.
But we do find out a secret that her mom was keeping. And so basically her mom tells Violet that she has done pretty much everything in order to keep her children safe. And one of those things is she put Violet into the writer's quadrant, which we already knew about. Like she thought that was the safest place for her. But she was afraid that Violet would find out what's going on and get herself killed in the like scribe quadrant. So she put her in the writer's quadrant and she tasked Xaden with keeping her alive. So this whole time where everybody thought that Xaden was going to kill her, he was the one like protecting her. And not just because he loved her, because he didn't love her at first. He wanted her dead, right? But because he had made a promise to her mom as he took the 107 marks down his back. That was his like oath to
bargain,
her is that he would bargain. Yeah. He would take on all of their like lives basically in exchange for a favor to be named at a later date instead of them all just being put to death. And so Violet's mom's like, okay, I'll do that in exchange for the favor. And Violet's mom is thinking, at some point, I'm going to have somebody save Violet. And so when he got into the quadrant and then Violet got into the quadrant, it was to protect Violet. during the challenges and everything else.
And that bargain mark was over his heart too. Like that's where that mark was. And so then, of course, this initiates Violet second guessing the basis of the relationship, right? Because she's just like, well, was any of it genuine or were you just forced to protect me and be there for me type of thing? So she's just feeling all kinds of insecure.
We do see, like, as we've mentioned, they all have some pretty badass signets, but the one that, like, I'm like, ooh, this one's pretty cool is Bodhi's. He can counter signets.
I thought you were going to say the making small things bigger again.
No.
The way you said, ooh.
Well, I like Bodhi, like, a lot. I don't know, like,
Bodhi's great.
what it is about him, but I like him. Probably because he's, like, I don't know, he let slip truths that, like, weren't there before, and I like that. But anyway, he can counter signets, which I think is really, really cool, because that's the signet that I would want. So, like, people can't be using their shit on me.
No, it's very useful. It's around this time that Andarna finally awakens as well. And she's kind of like a fresh-born horse, very wobbly on her awkward limbs that don't suit her.
The poor little baby can't open her wing.
Yeah, she's very much like Violet in a physical sense with some of the things that she is handicapped with, right?
So everybody's living in this little, like, I don't know, like house type thing, like in the Ryerson's house. And I love that they all keep like the council keeps like going after Xaden and like saying, well, that she can't stay here. And he's like, this is my fucking house. Mine. Like, you can't tell me who gets to stay in my house and where. My house. And so he keeps kind of pulling rank a little bit, like, even though he doesn't want to be the leader of all of this, he keeps pulling the rank just a little bit. And then so does Brennan, because like he keeps siding with Violet.
Yeah, it's his sister.
And so you have the other instructors who are getting a little pissy because they don't want to keep doing the things. But then you see another riot coming, so then they're all trying to like prepare for battle. And as they're doing this, Violet finds out that Mira is leading that. And so she's like, don't kill my sister. Don't kill my sister. Like, whatever you do, do not kill my sister. And so she tries to get out ahead of everybody else so that she can talk to her sister and try and like talk some sense into her, right? But we find out that they are coming, in fact, because they've already had the sense talked into them and they are coming to join. And so you know that council's even more beside themselves because they're like, we don't want all of you.
I mean, it's justified, right? It's a huge secret that they're rebuilding Eurasia, and then just so many people. It's like every person that knows is just further jeopardizing this precious thing that they're trying to build. And it's the worst reunion scene ever between Mira and Brennan. Like, if you thought Violet was kind of hurt, I mean, Violet at least was excited to see Brennan again. Mira is just straight pissed off.
Yeah, and she punches him.
Yeah, like bleeding, like makes his nose bleed. To
the point that like Violet steps in between them and she's like, stop it.
Yeah, it's like a very much a sibling squabble. And you have Xaden just kind of like observing these three siblings talk it out.
And he's like, man, I'm kind of glad I don't have siblings. So we are introduced to this thing called the Luminary, which like I didn't get the gist of what the Luminary does, but is it like kind of like a forge for them to like forge their weapons?
Yeah, it's a key part of the forge to make it hotter.
And so we had to go visit a Lord King something,
Viscount Takaris.
And we see somebody, our favorite person again, and we find out that Takaris has two nieces, Serena and Kat. And we find out a little bit about Xaden and his relationship with Takaris, because he has a room at Takaris' palace that is solely for him, and he has clothes that were made for him. And so we get the sense that he has spent a lot of time at this palace, right? A lot of time. And Kat is being her bitchy self and letting things slip and like, you know, he was mine first and blah, blah, blah. And we find out that they were betrothed to each other. And Violet is not happy.
The whole scene is comical because Violet wasn't supposed to fly to Corden, but she thought Xaden was busy doing something else. And so she was just like, oh, I'm going to hop on my dragon and go to Corden. And so she goes with her sister, and I forget who else is with them. And Xaden's just like, oh, you're not where I
Brennan.
left you, Violence, when she sees like Xaden behind all these people that greet them at Corden. And so basically, to get this luminary piece for the forge for these weapons that they need against the Venom, the Viscount wants Violet to be able to display her power, and he hasn't really given them information about what task he's going to have her do. So they have to go through all of this stupid pageantry until they get to that point, which involves like a special fancy dinner and all of this stuff. So this is when Catriona is being very catty and just like putting in her jabs. They're walking through like the palace or the estate, whatever you want to call it. And it's just like the most unrealistic place ever. Like they are vulnerable, like they have fake grass, they have fountains and big swimming pools. And it's just a very elaborate, ritzy place that does not protect them from the Venom at all. Which, side note, I'm like, what's going on here? Because they are very far south and east, and you're telling me that they haven't been overtaken by the Venom yet? Like, what's going on here? You know what I mean? Like, there's something going on the inside. And so the dinner party, it's like, I love the scenes where they get tailored and they get to dress up in their fancy little sexy gowns and stuff. And so Violet, of course, has her black dress that like dips down and has her open back that shows her tattoo, her relic of the dragons. And they go to dinner. And it's just, you want to talk about the scene and what happens?
I don't know exactly what you're talking about, but I do want to talk about Kat's little like jabs at her, because she keeps making these little jabs, and one of them is about like his control. And I loved it so much when Xaden made his own little jab back, and you know it was a jab, but like it could have just been like a comment, but he makes a jab, like a comment about maintaining control is nearly impossible around Violet. And like basically implying that like I was able to control myself around you, but like no.
Yeah, does he tell her that at dinner or whatever?
Yeah, and it's even more of a jab because we find out that Kat's abilities are to take people's control away from them and make them feel emotions, like heighten their emotions. And so once we figured that out, we figure out that how like much of a jab that was, because he was still able to control himself around her, even with her most likely influencing his control too.
The very strange part here is Violet says a few times, like, she is so powerful. She's so powerful. How could she be that powerful? Because Violet has been shielding the whole time. She can shield and keep Xaden out of her head and break contact, but she's shielding, yet she's not keeping Catriona out, which is a very interesting thing to note. And so it's like right after this fancy dinner where Xaden is trying to, in his way, you know, ease Violet's mind, that they're like, okay, it's time to show off your power. They break out this wardrobe, and the wardrobe belonged to his father or something, right? Like that's where it was from. It's a special wardrobe because Violet and Mira come down to this arena type of pit, and they open up the wardrobe and this venom comes out, and it looks like it's starving. It hasn't been feeding or whatever, getting its power that it needs. And so Violet is tasked with showing her power, like killing this thing. And she struggles because our girl cannot aim.
She is also very smart. And so she uses those brains, and she realizes, hey, it's going to rain. We just have to keep alive. So she tells like Brennan to go back up the steps. She waits for there to be like puddles of water on the ground around the venom. And then she strikes the water at the same time that Taryn lifts her up. And so the lightning goes all in the water and kills the venom.
That's one of the things I love the most about Violet, is how she's able to creatively deal like these solutions out
with her problems.
So they finally prove themselves, get the luminary, they bring it back to Erasia, and then it's at Erasia, right? They're like, oh, we're going to start taking on these griffin flyers. Like they're going to come here.
It wasn't their choice. That was part of the bargain for the luminary. Like that they had to take the griffin riders with them. And I'm going to point this out, but I got a very pick-me girl vibe off of Kat. Like, she kept like being like, I'm better than you. I'm better than you. Like, just little jabs about it. It was very pick-me. Like, just like, I had him first. And Violet's like, well, I'm going to have him last. So what? Like,
which we
kind
do
of
find
things.
out it's not about Xaden. Like, it's not like as something as petty as fighting over a guy, that there's a different reason Kat's upset.
It's because Xaden is technically the like crown prince or the next in line for
If there was.
throne of
Erasia.
Well, but it's called like a Terra something.
Oh, Tyrandor.
Tyrandor, yeah. The Tyrandor throne.
Mm-hmm.
And so she wants the crown.
She wants the
She's
power.
not after the boy, she's after the crown.
Mm-hmm. Which is just, it's interesting.
I do also like that's a like callback to Caltaine too. Like it's very similar to Caltaine because she was after the crown too.
Mm-hmm.
She didn't really care about Dorian.
She didn't care who it was. This is just the position and influence that she wanted. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so this is the part of the book where it becomes like a melding of war colleges, right? So you have the Griffin Riders who do things the complete opposite way as Basgiath. Like Basgiath is all about death and ruthlessness and just killing and dying and all this stuff. And then you have the Griffins that are like, no, we just like jump off a cliff and hope we land on a Griffin. And that's how we bond. And if not, we just swim and go into a different quadrant, their equivalent over there.
Yes. I found it funny that she's like, oh, and then you die? And they're like, no.
I'm like, bitch, where do you think you are
No,
right
we just
now?
swim down the river. Like, only your side does the dying shit.
Mm-hmm. Very, very interesting. And so they're having to take their Griffin. And so Griffin don't have the altitude that dragons do. So they have to like snail climb this mountain range to get up to Tyrandor and get them to Erasia in the first place. And this is where there's different things that happen, right? It's kind of like their parapet crossing-ish in a way for them to go to the war college at Erasia. And Wyvern attack, it's like this shit show of things happening. Riddick gets shot with a couple arrows. You know, people are dying, like falling off. Violet, she doesn't have a choice between saving one of the people from Basgiath and saving someone from, you know, the Griffins, but it happens that the Griffin one dies. And the Griffin stuff works like if the rider dies, the flyer dies, then the Griffin dies. Like that's just, it's a complete one-to-one, vice versa. Like if one dies, the other dies. And so then Kat is even angrier because, oh, now you're just like picking your people over my people type of thing. So it's that kind of scene. And meanwhile, there's just Erasia is looking, House Ryerson is looking very full. It's looking like a giant hotel at this point.
Yes. And we see they're working on ruin making, which are like little drawing type things that like spell, like spellbound kind of like help you in certain ways, you know? And so whatever you draw is kind of how you're being helped. And one of those we find out in Xaden's room. One of the questions that Violet asks is about a ruin that she found in his room. And it was basically made by Liam's mom. And it was to keep safe all of the children of the people who ended up dead, right? And so each one of them had one. And it was to keep them safe. And it's no longer able to be used. It's out of magic because it did keep them all safe.
Yeah.
So he just keeps it as a reminder that they cared more about their kids. Like they knew they were all going to die. And so they wanted to make sure that their kids were safe. And the ruin itself, like, was to conflict the signet of the dragon that was set to, like, assassinate them.
Yes. After the Griffins and the Flyers get to House Ryerson, they do this thing where they combine everyone. So they reshuffle the squads. And so now they're forced to work together. And of course, Catriona is the best of the Flyers. So of course, she's going to be placed on Violet's team. And so they're all grumpy about having to share the Iron Flame, that badge, with them because they didn't earn it. And they're just forced to get along now. And so one of the first things that they have to do is the Rune Collection Challenge together, where they go collect it in these tunnels or these caves in the mountain. And horrible things happen in this mountain. They run into Solus, the one-eyed crazy dragon of Varish. And Andarna has a huge growth moment here. You want to share what she does?
So she basically attacks Solus. She comes in and she is attacking him the whole time. Violet's like, no, get yourself to safety, my little baby. But she ends up killing him. And she has to is it like a little trial that she has to go to after to like explain why she killed him? Because Taryn mentions that it's okay. They've determined that she did it out of necessity, kind of thing. But poor little baby.
Yes, this is where she finally gets her tail, and it's like the scorpion tail. She has a poison barb, which is badass. And her reasoning as well, it hit her so hard when Violet was poisoned in the first book at the end that Andarna turned that into one of her tools in her arsenal with her tail.
I don't know if that's how every dragon gets their tail, but I got the sense that Andarna was a little special in this part because she's every time Violet sees her, she's a different color, and she can we find out later she blended into the rock, and I'm she's like a chameleon, and so I'm can she choose? What she has on her? Is this she's actively making these choices, or is it I don't know. Is that normal for a dragon? Because we don't have a whole lot of backstory into the other dragons growing up. And we know that Andarna is different because she slept for a lot longer. She did all these things, but we don't know how much that was impacted by what happened to her. But we also know she's the first little one that was able to pick a rider and things like that. So she's special in some way, and we know that. But how much of that is being impacted in this, and how much of this is what is normal for a dragon?
The part that I can't figure out is it says that she sat unhatched for over 6 centuries, right? And when we met Andarna at the beginning of Fourth Wing, she was 2 years old or something, real young. And we also learned that Violet's father had died 1 year before. And so it's okay, there's some overlap there. He was alive when Andarna was around, and he was researching feather tails, which it gets asked the question, where are his notes on feather tails? And Violet is something tells her not to disclose that information. Violet's oh, it's where he always was, in the archives. She knows his notes are there somewhere, but she decides to not tell them that. And so it just makes you wonder if Andarna had met Violet's father, knew him, and what that relationship was, because the timeline just matches up. There has to be something there, right?
Well, and she mentions that she chose when she was born, when she hatched. She's when I heard about basically Violet, that's when I chose to be hatched. And I'm is that normal? Do dragons get to choose when they're born?
Yeah. The rider born with the scribe's mind. Yeah. That whole scene.
She's I knew that you were going to be my person. And I was oh. But we also see before all of that, we saw that as they were putting the riders and the cadets together, they allowed anybody to challenge anybody, but only one time. And so Kat's Violet. And in doing that, Kat is using her power, which they're not supposed to be using powers, to set Violet off. And she's doing those little jabs again. And Violet figures out that Xaden is the one who trained Kat. And Kat makes a jab of oh, you figured out that I know what it feels like for him to be above me or whatever. Innuendo.
That trick with his fingers. Yeah, that was me. It is definition cat fight, and Violet gets so angry. I like how at the end of this fight, Xaden's hauling Violet off of her body and picks her up and is carrying her to the assembly room, tells everyone to get the fuck out, and then puts her in this chair. She's not paying attention. She's so angry and just spewing her hatred of Catriona. And it's one of my favorite quotes in the book. It's my house, my chair, my woman. So he gets to make up his own rules. And this is when it becomes a very sexy scene in the throne chair where he calms her down. and tries to like ease her mind about the whole Catriona situation, which was so chef's kiss, like such a great scene.
Yes, so during that scene, he also lets her see his emotions. So
Weird.
I think that was a little foreshadowing into what we figure out later, because he lets her see his.
It's like, did he let her look at it? Because he was shook about it, right? He was like across the room, like leaning against the table afterwards. Like he didn't expect it to be that strong or something. You know what I mean? Like his fantasizing about her.
Well, I think he did that because he's still holding out for those 3 words, and he got a little too invested in this.
You think that's what it was?
Yeah. But it was kind of like the dragon sharing their emotions. Like
Yeah.
it was between them. Like it was like they were writer and dragon at that time, like sharing their emotions. That's also where she figures out that he is technically the king of Tyrandor, or like
If they had,
rightful king of Tyrandor, and that's what Kat wants.
It's the same, around the same time she starts suspecting that Xaden has 2 signets, because the fact that Sigale had bonded with his grandfather and not like an uncle or something that was a little more removed.
Well, it's a known thing that, or well, she finds out that it's a known thing through her like research, that if a dragon bonds with an immediate family member, like direct line, that there's either 2 signets or the first one can make you go mad.
Yes.
And she's like, well, he's not mad. So only one other option here.
I mean, he's mad for her,
So, yes.
but yeah, he seems pretty sane.
And then Dane is in here helping them with the journals because he is really versed in languages too, because he studied with her, and like they used to use the languages, like the foreign ones, as their special like friend language, which was cute. And so we see Dane, like he's growing on me.
He's like coming back slowly, right? It's just one of those tender moments where you're like, oh, there was some potential here if he hadn't been such a dickhead, because he is like cute, dimply, so smart, obviously talented, but yeah.
And yes, we do see the signets, but poor little Xaden doesn't want to share his second signet because he's afraid that she'll fall out of love with him. And she hasn't even shared that she is, in fact, in love with him again. Like, she hasn't given him those words. And so he's like, how long does it take to fall out of love? He's like, because as soon as I tell you this, I don't, like, it's going to happen. And so he finally shares with her that his second signet is, like, he's an intensic. He can read people's intentions. So not their minds, but, like, what they intend to do.
I mean, at this point, it's like, what is the difference? Because in the past, he's always responded and reacted in a way as if he can like see her thoughts clearly and answering them. So it's like, what is the difference at this point? And it's like,
and that's what she's thinking. She's like, how often have you used this on me? Because you know how it affected me.
Yeah.
When Dane took my memories, and that's just my memory.
Yeah.
Like, that's not even like my decision making away from me,
Yeah.
And so she is a little rightfully iffy about this, and he's like, see, that's why I didn't tell you, because he like saw it happen on her face. And he's like, the love,
the 4 words that like break your heart. He was like, less than a minute. And she was like, what? He's like, it took you less than a minute to fall out of love with me. And it was just like, oh my God, that hurts so good. It's like, things will somehow work out, or you hope that they do. Like, please, Rebecca, give us a happy ending here. But you felt for him. Her trauma with Dane, and then her second guessing everything after the 107 marks on her back. Like, this did not help with any of that at all. She was already insecure about everything. And then Catriona, it's just like this conglomeration of shit just not working in Xaden's favor right now.
The perfect storm.
Yes, the perfect storm.
Like bad.
These Soren Gales and their storms. Yeah, but we want to talk about the final scene, like the final stuff that happens.
To add to the perfect storm here, we see hundreds of wyvern collecting.
Violet uses her very intellectual mind to figure out that Samara is a ruse and they are planning on tearing down the wards from Basgiath.
Well, before that, though, we got the wards up in Eurasia, right? They just had a little bit of a problem, right? Well, we used Taryn and the other like six because she discovers or she like figures out that the blood of the six is the heir of the dragons.
Yeah.
And so she uses the six dragons to get the ward up. And that is like where we see the hundreds of wyvern. And so basically they're attacking, but the ward goes up right as they start the attack. And then they all fall and then they leave. And it's after that we figure out that there was something wrong with the ward. Like it wasn't exactly perfect.
It's a very temporary ward. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I don't remember who it is, but somebody told them to go check out the wyverns that fell. And so Mira's out there just carving them up and like finding the like little stone that's in them that gives them their life. And at that point, one of them comes back to life. So they figure out something didn't exactly work right with their ruin or their ward. And then Commander Mildred calls them to him and he's like, hey, like they're about to attack us. We're going to lose everything. We need you to help us, basically. He's like, I've already seen it on Solstice Day. They kill everybody. And so they go back and they're trying to decide whether or not they're going to help. Yeah. At that meeting, we see their mother. And at first it's just Mira and Violet. Wow, that was hard. Who go to this meeting with Xaden and they're talking about it. And Xaden's like, fuck no. You've never helped anybody else. So why would I help you? So they're trying to get things going. And then Brennan walks out because they're like, you don't have the power or whatever. What about your council? And Brennan's like, no. And the mom's like, wait a minute. And I think Brennan even makes a comment about when all three of your children are against you, maybe it's time to think about what you're doing.
Yeah. The reunion between he and the mom was very not good too, because he just straight up won't have anything to do with her. And then they're getting their asses kicked by all the wyvern and sages that have attacked Basgiath. And I can't remember how they put it together, but that Jack is on the wrong side, or the bad side.
Because he tells them. So we see them go back. And the mom hands them a new journal and she's like, your wards aren't working, are they? And she's like, that's because he didn't tell the full story. And so they start looking through this new journal and it's in a different language that only Jacinia can read. And so they have her start working on that. And then they figure out that they're not actually going to where Mildred, whatever his name is, thought that they were going, that they're actually going to go attack Basgiath. And so they go and start defending Basgiath. And Brennan doesn't want to go at first. Maybe this is where the mom meets them.
Yeah. It was pretty chaotic because there was so much happening. I think it was a very brief moment. Yeah.
But Jack attacks him and he kills his dragon. And they're all like, well, don't you know that you're going to die? And he's like, no. And then it's revealed that he is a villain.
Yeah, it's when Violet comes to the realization that the wards are going to be broken at Basgiath, and that's why all the wyvern have been in a holding pattern waiting for the he that keeps being referenced. She's like, fuck, we have to go check on the ward stone here. And so she's racing. And the crazy part about the scene is everyone keeps commenting on how fast she's going. And she just keeps going around corners, going downstairs, getting to this ward stone. And that's when she happens upon Jack, who is in the process of breaking the stone by spilling his own dragon's blood on it. We learn that he's Venom, and that's how he's been brought back to life and mended or whatever. And he's been working on the dark side the entire time. And then there's a bunch of shit that happens in this room. He ends up breaking the wards down. The wyvern come. Everyone keeps talking about some sage that's coming. And things are looking very bad. Sloane is in the room. I forget who all's in the room. There's so many people here. Dane's here. That's how he reads Jack's memories. And he planted lures all over Basgiath to bring the wyvern here. And
Mhm.
it's this scene where Xaden is like trying to hold the front, right? And he's burning out, he's tapping out, and they have to mend the stone now, so that they need Brennan to come mend it because he can do that. But they also have to imbue the stone in order to fix it and get the wards back up. And so this is when we lose Mama Sorngale, and it turns out to be a really sad scene because the mom basically sacrifices herself, forces Sloane's hand into siphoning out all of her power to imbue this stone. And it's just a heartbreaking scene because, like, as soon as you figured out that Mama was watching out for her kids and loved them, you know, and doing the best to her ability the whole time, like, she dies.
And you see a, like, maybe not a, like, in the past, like, but you see what she told their dad, which is that I will never fall in battle. The only reason I will fall is to protect my kids.
Yes.
And it's like, oh, yes. Like, as a mom, like, that is where I am. Like, I would totally do anything and everything.
It's heartbreaking. And then, I mean, so much shit is happening. Like, Sawyer loses his leg, so he's being mended. Justinia's checking on him. Meanwhile, Violet can sense that Xaden is in a very bad way. Like,
well, and we figure out, like, what the fuck is going on with Andarna, because she comes out. She's been telling her this whole time that she will be where she needs her to be. And we're like, no, go save yourself. And she's like, no, I'll be where you need me to be. And so she comes out of, like, this little, like, rock. And Violet's like, what the hell? Like, were you camouflaging yourself? Like, what's going on? And Andarna, like, I think she saves her from something else. I forgot what she saved her from, but, like, she helps her. And then Mama tells them that, like, you know, basically hints that they're, like, what's missing is in that. And Justinian is like, there's a 7. Like, this says 7. And this whole time, Andarna has made, like, little quips to Taryn that, like, he's not her boss because, like, he's not in her like den. And she's like, well, what if I'm the, like, boss of my den? What if I'm the oldest and, like, I get to do what I want to do? And he's like, fucking adolescence. But she is, in fact, telling the truth. She is her own boss. She is the only one of her kind. She is the 7th kind of dragon.
she is the one combined.
She's the combined. And so her breath is the final, like, thing to raise a ward. And this is where we find out that she chose to come when she chose to, and she chose the person ahead of being born. Like, she knew who her, like, flyer was going to be, and her rider. And so she's like, yes, I'll breathe on your rock. And so, you know, Violet gets the other 6 there. She asks Xaden if they can only do it once. Does he want it here or in Erasia? And he's like, well, you're here, so put the wards up here. And knowing that, like, that's basically just condemning his homeland. And so she has the wards put up with that 7th dragon that, like, stabilizes the ward, basically. And as we know, or we've been told this whole time, like, the dragon can only do 1 ward stone. But I'm wondering if that's the case for her.
Yeah, the rules might not apply to her because she's unlike anything anyone's ever seen before.
Because she's basically all 6 of them. So maybe she gets 6 times.
Maybe.
I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful that there will be some, like, little loophole in that, because she is basically, like, the only one.
We have to find out in the next book, because, you know, Papa Sorngale had some notes on this. Like, it could be that she's not the only one. We don't know. It could be she mates with the dragon herself and is able to produce more. Like, we don't know.
But he was doing notes on the Feathertails, which are the babies.
Mm-hmm.
So not necessarily what she is. She's not a Feathertail anymore.
Not anymore.
She's a something else.
Mm-hmm.
Which we don't know yet what exactly that 7th dragon is. So I'm wondering if there is some, like, leeway, loophole areas. But anyway, so she helps get the wards back up and running, and the war, battle, whatever, is kind of over. They go about killing the rest of the wyverns and the leadership go and attack the ones that are still out there. And she goes to meet Xaden.
Yeah, Taryn and Sigale are acting like very weird. Like, go
Yeah.
talk to him.
They were acting kind of weird before that, because when she figures out the second signet, she figures out, like, Taryn figures out that she didn't tell him about that.
Yeah, Taryn's upset about Sigale knowing.
So they were already, like, Sigale and Taryn were already fighting a little bit because the mate kept it from him. There was a second signet. But then they're acting even weirder because something happened to Xaden. And Sigale, like, basically tells her, you better watch what you say to him. Like, watch your words, as she walks up. And he's like, I don't want to turn around.
He's just like, if you didn't trust me before, like, it's game over now, essentially. It's a heartbreaking little scene.
Because in order to kill the, like, sage commander, whatever, he tapped into extra powers because he was afraid for Violet's life. And so he became a villain.
When I read this scene, I was just like, are you fucking kidding me? I was just, I felt so bad for him because he had no idea what was going on behind the, Violet's ward or her shielding, because she had this plan. Mm-hmm. Like, she wasn't in as dire a state as he thought she was. And he thought he had to do this, like, channel their power from the earth to be able to go save her. And then he turns around, his eyes are red.
Communication is not exactly their strong suit.
No. And then it's this last scene of the book, which is weird because I couldn't tell whether it was like the dreams that she was having all along were predictions of the future or a shared vision from the two of them, or whose nightmare it was, or whether it was just the head Venom, like, dream walking.
Playing with her mind.
Mm-hmm.
But then, okay, so there's also, like, a lot of, like, in my, like, I don't know what's going on in my head around Violet and having the second dragon, because, like, with Xaden, he got 2 signets because his dragon had bonded in his family, right? It would make sense that she would get a second signet from her second dragon, or something comes out of that. And with Andarna being so special, like, there's got to be something. And I'm wondering if that is, maybe she was seeing that with the dreams and with her hallucinations. Like, maybe she's able to pull in, kind of like Mildred or Milgren, whatever his name is, that commander that can see results. Maybe she can see something, and maybe that's because of Andarna, because Andarna, like, gave her the power to, like, stop time. Maybe it's like time jumping or something.
So are we talking theories now? Because you're just going to have to bear with me, because I have some thoughts. I think Andarna is some kind of spectral dragon. She bends light. Everything revolves around light being Violet's, like, innate power. And she says it herself in the first book, I am the sky and I'm the power of every storm that has ever been. Like, I am infinite. So I think the special thing about Violet is that she is the ultimate power source. I don't know whether that's just like the sky or just light energy. It's interesting that her name is Violet, because you think about visible light is what makes Andarna be able to bend the light to camouflage, but there's also ultraviolet light that you cannot see. So it's like, if Violet is like this souped up person, and there have been several instances where people around her are able to do incredible feats, whether it's their speed, getting daggers through walls, shielding with blocks of ice, and protecting people. There's like incredible feats going around, and Violet is always around when it happens. So it's like, is she some kind of like something stronger than...
She could be a, like, conduit.
Yes, like something stronger than an amplifier, right? She's just the ultimate source of energy, and everyone wants her. Basgiath wants her, the Viscount wants her, the Venom want her, because she is this incredible power source. They mentioned that she has only channeled light in lightning form because she hasn't been taught anything else. What if she's able to, like, fine tune it so minutely where it's like you could bring people back to life with, like, a spark, right? Or like there's electricity that goes through people's brains and stuff like that. But there's so much about light. Like, what is a soul? There was a very passing comment in the first book. Someone referred to Basgiath as a death factory. It's like, what if the reason why the land is so special and why they create all this death at the school is to harvest those souls to power up the dragons. And that's why it's so rich and fertile land. Like, what if it does have something to do with souls? What if, as you said, their souls do linger if you don't burn their things? So it's like all of this stuff could be like electricity, light, like that's a type of power, right? And then there was a passing epigraph in a book too that was like, Venin are told, like it's not known for sure, but it's foretold that like Venin also have heightened senses. Like they could be faster, they could have better eyesight. So she is definitely faster than anyone's ever seen before, right? The fact that her hair leaches out is like a physical implication that something happened. Maybe she was infected by Venin, maybe mom when she was pregnant, because there was one scene where mom came home from war and had red eyes and they like, laughed it off.
She could be like the antidote.
Yes.
Because she is light and the Venin are like dark.
Yes.
So maybe she's like the antidote to the Venin, which would be great for Xaden.
Yes. But like even the name of the series, Empyrean, like that refers to heavens. And it's like there's so much soul talk, what the essence of a person is and how their power manifests. Like it has to be connected.
Also, like, I don't know, I got a very chameleon-like vibe off of Andarna. So I wonder if her signet for her is going to be something like chameleon-like. Like you can either amplify everybody else around you's powers, or you can choose when to amplify them because like what you want amplifies the powers because she wanted Ree to be able to get her dagger and take it away, things like that. When you want them to amplify, or like, I don't know, or she's going to end up being able to do all of them. Like you said that there were comments about like the reason you can only do this is because you haven't been trained. So maybe like she can pull in other people's signets and like do that. I think that there's more to her. I think that there's more to Andarna too.
You said Bodhi is the one that can counter signets, because if someone can counter signets, someone can power them up and supercharge them too, right? There has to be a balance. And it's like, okay, there's something there. There was also a passing comment like distance wielders, like someone could take a step and go hundreds of miles. It was mentioned like one time. So it's like, the speed of light is what you could liken that to. Like, I don't think Violet has touched like the depths of what she can do with if light is the purest energy and she can channel however she wants, which is incredible. But like, here's the unsettling thing to me, because you mentioned Andarna stopping time. If Andarna has something to do with time, hatching 6 centuries later, still being sentient and knowing what's going on around her, knowing that Violet was the one she wanted to bond with, there has to be, you're going to think this is like batshit crazy of me looking way too into things, but the final scene where they're talking about the venin that Violet is facing down with and describing him like holding her throat and stuff in this dream or whatever, she mentions his breath smelled sweet and he had tan skin in the flash of skin that she saw. The only person that has been described as having tan skin has been like Xaden and Bodhi, right? Because they were described as tan, tawny, and his breath was sweet because of the churum that he smokes. There have only been like 3 instances where they talk about something sweet. It's him smoking churum, and he had sweet, minty breath. And then there was like the sweetness of the vial that, cuts their connection with the dragons, which it could be a distilled version or something of the churum. But I'm like you said, we know nothing about Andarna. What if this guy is like in a weird twisted way, like a future Xaden or something, like just big bad or something.
And that's how they have the connection that they do?
Yeah. And all these epigraphs, like finding all of these old records, like recovered notes and letters.
Yeah, it hints that like we're telling you the story of the past, not the story of the present.
Yeah, it's like really fucking weird. So there's just so much, and I'm like, how are we supposed to wait an entire year to see what happens in the middle?
Maybe, okay, I mean, this is maybe like weird, but maybe this is Violet in the future looking back on what happened and how she could have changed things with Xaden. Like at this point, like a notebook kind of a thing. Like Andarna is allowing her to go back in time. Like, that's her power or whatever. And so she's trying to find the spot where she could have told him she loved him, or like what she could have done to help him so that he doesn't become that guy.
Yeah, I like
Maybe
that
we'll
one.
find out that this was the past, and now we're trying to figure out how to like undo this.
I hope that's the case. I don't want him to go bad, but like you knew it was coming because the comment, you know, like, oh, the villain will always like burn the world to save the girl. And every single one of Xaden's comments was like, if I had to pick between Erasha and you, I would pick you, Violet, like every time. Like all of these comments constantly. And then he turns Brennan.
And then the comment about your enemies can be those that are closest to you, or like,
yes,
whatever that comment was. Like, I'm like, oh, no. But yeah, I think that there's more to Andarna. I think that she is going to be key to what happens.
Our girl
in the
is
future.
special. I also suspect, like, I feel like Violet's mom was probably Brennan too, because I think she was pregnant and went to battle and was close to dying. And so her only choice to save her and the baby was to do that. And that's how Violet ended up, you know, how she is.
Different. But I also think, like, you're on to something. I think maybe Violet is the antidote.
Hopefully she
and that would undo our like theory of the time travel thing. But I think she might be, there might be something very special about Violet as a person, and not necessarily as like the things she can do or her dragons, but like as a person, she's special, and that's why she drew the two dragons to her.
I like that theory because they kept putting the imagery in your head, like she'd style her hair like in a braid and then make it like a crown on her head. Like that imagery is like for a reason, you know, she's not just like making some silver tips turn into a braided crown on her head. Like there's something there. There was so much in this book. Like I read it 2 times, right? And it's like every time I read it, I picked up on different things. And I was just like, I could read it again and pick up more.
Yeah, I've only read it 1 time very, very quickly. So a lot, like...
Too much. And this is a very long episode.
Yes.
Welcome to our longest episode ever.
I hope you guys have enjoyed this. If you have theories, please send them our way. You can reach us on Instagram or
email,
Twitter, X, whatever, email. Or just make a comment if you're watching us on YouTube, because we would love to hear your theories about what is in the next book, since we're all waiting a year anyway.
Yes, I feel like I'm dying and can't wait that long. I don't know what to do with my life now.
I'm sure you will make me read extra books of some other sort. So, and we are going to do an episode with like just BuzzFeed quizzes, just silliness.
No, we will. We'll find time. Maybe Friday we can do some or something. We'll find time. We'll do some fun stuff. And then on January 8th, look out for our first Crescent City episode, House of Earth and Blood, chapters 1 through 42. We're going to talk about it. So that is what we're going to start reading next, but we'll do some fun stuff in the meantime. So thanks for tuning in, y'all.
Bye.